Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. It is October in 2020, which apparently, according to some research, is 1 year after when the movie we were about to talk about is set. So, which we'll talk about why that's so silly in a minute. But,
did you say 2020 or 2021?
2021, I think.
Okay.
I meant to say 2021. If I did say 2021, I meant to say 2021.
I thought you said 2020, but I could be wrong. But maybe I was thinking of the movie. I don't know.
So, yes, this is Screams After Midnight. It's a horror movie podcast. I am Pierre, and I'm joined by Tim.
The original sweet man. I'm a man. I do like candy. I'm not the candy man, but
No.
I like candy. I'll say that.
Yes, Tim is bad for your teeth. Can confirm. So, we're here today to talk about Candyman 3: Day of the Dead. Of course, we're doing this because we did the first two a while ago. We were kind of like intentionally doing them when the new one was meant to come out like a year ago or whatever it was. And then, of course, we went on a big break. Tim aforementioned.
We were on a break.
Tim went from being just a sugar daddy to being an actual daddy. And we're back. Obviously, the new one is now available on VOD, so we plan to do that this month, very, very soon. But we had to get Candyman 3 out of the way first, so we were completely up to date on all things Candyman.
That's a good way to put it. We had to get it out of the way. Not like we wanted to watch it. We wanted to review it. It's like, no, unfortunately, we were obligated and had to get Candyman 3 Day of the Dead out of the way.
Yes, I'd never seen this before, so I was going in blind. I wasn't expecting good things, but this was a new experience to me.
I think I watched it. I think I watched it last year because I was getting amped up for the new Candyman, and even before we were doing reviews, I was like, I'll watch all of them, and then, oof.
Yeah, because obviously we did the first one, and it was probably the most I'd ever enjoyed it, really talking about it, and the allegories and what it was really saying. Candyman 2, not that great a movie, but I mean, I'll say this, I at least appreciate that it tried to add more to the metaphor and more to what it was trying to say, even if the execution's a bit, ropey.
It's not good, but there is at least something there, and I will say I do like the subtitle on that one.
Yes, Farewell to the Flesh, as opposed
a great
to
subtitle.
This film, which, because you just said, something, there was something there, even if, the execution's not good. Here, there is nothing there, and that leads us to Candyman 3, Day of the Dead. We'll start spoiler-free if you happen to care, but, and then we'll get into spoilers and talk about it when we give you warning. So, that's what we're going to do. So I mentioned earlier that this is technically set in 2020. Now, I never noticed this in the movie. I never heard, or I never saw the year being mentioned in the film. But
no one was wearing masks.
No one was, for a start, it wasn't the pandemic, so they got that wrong. It also looks like the late 90s, miraculously.
Yeah.
Funny that. But yeah, so the main character in this, and I never really realised this because I didn't really remember the name because it's been a while since we watched the second one, but is the daughter of the main character from the last film, meaning that this is a good couple decades or so later, and apparently, according to a quick search, multiple places were saying this was set in 2020, which in 2021, when we were watching this, is actually kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I saw the same thing because I was gonna I was checking Wikipedia to see if there's anything interesting about the movie that maybe we could talk about. Spoiler alert, there's not, but yeah, that's like one of the first things I noticed they had on there, and I was like, wait, is that true? Granted, admittedly, my eyes weren't glued to the screen every single second of this movie, so I was like, did I miss something? Did I sneeze? And and then someone mentioned oh, hey, by the way, 2020 is crazy, right? I don't know.
Yeah, so weird. And I think what gets me is that I saw that in Wikipedia as well. I went back to the movie, went back to the start to see if there was a caption at the start or something, or after the credits saying, 20 years, or just 2020 or whatever. And there wasn't anything there. And then I googled, and there was at least a couple of different articles or reviews that also referred to it as 2020, and they mentioned that the main character is the daughter of the character in the last film, which doesn't specify 2020, but it does mean, given the last film was set, I assume, in present day 1995, and given the age of the character in this, like, it has to be around that, give or take, anyway. So yeah, sure. If anything, this has reminded me of Friday the 13th Part 7, where it starts off with Jason in the lake from the end of Part 6, so you know that it starts off after what was sometime mid late 80s. And then the little girl in the scene at the start of the movie, we jump ahead and she's like 18, meaning that the movie's set in probably around 2002, even though it's still 1987, in the movie, in every other way. So, and that is the most interesting bit of trivia that this movie has to offer. So congratulations, everyone.
These movies were made at a time where people didn't think people would be watching them more than like a couple of months after it's out.
Yeah, this was a straight to video movie that people thought, they'll rent it in the video store for another year and then it'll disappear and no one will ever mention it ever again.
Yeah, it's pretty safe if we say it's 2020, because what are the odds someone will actually be watching it that year?
What's funny is that if they hadn't delayed the new film, we would have watched this in 2020.
Yeah.
It would have been even funnier that it was set in 2020, but hey, alas, fate get in the way, as it is. Hey ho.
As it is.
So, the only other thing I noticed in the trivia on IMDb, and I don't usually look, I just happened to notice this, and I thought it was vaguely amusing, is that when artisans who made this movie went to make it, they just realized at the last second before production that technically Sony had like dibs on making sequels, and no one had noticed this. But luckily for them, and this to them should have been an omen, not to make the movie, but when they contacted Sony to say, hey, can we do this? Sony didn't want anything to do with it and said, sure. If that's not a sign that maybe you're doing something that isn't desirable, yeah, maybe change your mind a little bit.
Well, that sucks, because then and maybe if Sony would have held on a little longer, we could have had the Morbius versus Candyman movie that fans have been clamoring for.
I feel like the percentage of people watching this or listening to this show who even know who Morbius is probably like under 50-50.
Oh, come on. We've all seen the teaser trailer. That's another, case of the delays.
Tim, I'll be honest, I forgot there was a teaser trailer.
Trust me, we'll be there opening day. They're just waiting for for the world to be healed enough.
Am I included in this wee?
Of course.
Wait, is it because it's a vampire? Technically, we have to do it on streams. Is that what you're saying to me?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Oh god. Oh my god.
I'm sure it'll be a horror movie in at least some capacity.
Well, Jared Leto's in it, so yes, I will be horrified during the experience, certainly. So what is Candyman 3 about, one might ask? Well,
Day of the Dead.
Well, it's the daughter of the last the last film's character, meaning it's a direct descendant of Candyman. And Candyman comes after her. It kind of rehashes some of the making her look guilty for some murders from the first movie. Candyman seems to want her to embrace him or something.
Every line of dialogue from Candyman in this movie is like so vague and like just like generic. Like I don't know. It's like they just kind of just took like all these different like cliche like villain lines and we're like, all right, I'll just say this, and don't really have like much of a motive or anything, just come here and say this kind of vague, ominous, scary thing.
And it doesn't have anything to say either. Like, it doesn't, it very much doesn't add anything to the mythos or anything to outside of like, oh, here's a new way that you can defeat Candyman at the end, which we'll get to in spoilers, much like Freddy Krueger was victim of, where after a few movies they had to just start making up new ways to kill him. That just felt very random. But other than that, it doesn't like, I mean, if anything, this drifts so far from what the focus of Candyman is supposed to be, because I mean, there are some black characters, but they're relatively minor in the grand scheme of the movie. Whereas, sure, the first film did have a white lead, but it was all about her perspective and learning about what happened to Candyman in this neighborhood, and it was a way of exploring the gentrification and all that stuff. Whereas, and then Candyman 2 was more directly about dealing with the family related to him, and more about the history of the character and what happened to him. This film, it just kind of feels like it's irrelevant. It doesn't really matter.
So my question about that is, when they were making this, like, did someone say, we've already had a movie where we were kind of like exploring the ideas of like, this suburban white woman kind of, like initiating herself into this, like black neighborhood and stuff. Let's just do that again, but this time with Hispanic people. Like, it seems like they were just like trying to swap out all of like the racial stuff with African Americans, and like, let's just do like Hispanic people now for like no reason.
Yeah, that's the key part, is that it doesn't play into anything at all. There's like scenes of her like going to like the love interest David, his grandmother is like spiritual and stuff. So we get like a scene like that, and Day of the Dead is kind of going on during the climax, but that's basically it.
I think at one point one of the characters does go Chihuahua.
Well, that says all.
Yeah. A very racially sensitive movie.
Yes. So really weird, and just kind of like a tacked on movie that doesn't feel like it's even trying to be in the spirit of the previous films. It's just rehashing some plot things, but not the idea of things.
You know what it kind of felt like to me is, when we watch the Hellraiser sequels and but how you can tell like, okay, this wasn't originally supposed to be a Hellraiser movie. They just took a script and like threw Pinhead in it. Like, this actually feels like this was supposed to be a Hellraiser sequel that they just threw Candyman into. Like,
okay, I can kind of see it a little bit.
But yeah, it's like that was like the most feeling I got from this was like, oh yeah, this definitely feels like in line with those kind of like bad straight to DVD sequels for like Hellraiser and stuff from around this time.
Yeah. 1999 is the when this came out, just for the record. So it would be
maybe they're scared of Y2K, so like we just gotta rush this and just put something out before we all die.
Yeah, it would be 22 years before another Candyman movie, which we're both looking forward to checking out. But it has to be better than this one, if nothing else. Like the bar's been lowered so much that things are looking good. I guess the next thing I want to bring up is that about, I don't know, half an hour ago, something like that, 20 minutes before we came on to record, Tim sent me an image. He sent me a screen cap that he took of IMDb. He wanted to point out that the director of this, Turi Meyer, had directed an episode of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I especially enjoyed that he scribbled a red arrow onto the image to point to the image of Buffy on said IMDb page.
Well, it also said he had some involvement with Smallville, so I didn't want you to think that I was pointing that out. I specifically wanted to point out his Buffy credentials.
And, Tim seemed to think this was something of a smoking gun. Like, I had to praise this guy because he directed one episode of Buffy. So I want to point out a few things here, Tim. I want to point out a few things. Okay. And I've got a smoking gun of my own in the chamber.
Uh-oh.
Right? I've got a magic bullet here. So first things first, he's actually more of a writer. He's been writing a lot of TV for a long time. He has directed a few things here or there, TV episode-wise, but mostly writes. Some of it pretty shady looking, like Smallville and this movie, and some other stuff. But is mostly an executive producer and writes episodes of TV, and still works to this day. He's actually done a couple episodes of this season of Stargirl, apparently. I've not seen them yet. They're not aired yet, but they're coming up. So, okay.
Imagine people probably just constantly asking him Candyman 3 questions on set.
But, done other stuff, right? And I was looking at the IMDb because you'd sent me, you made me curious, and I got to looking. Do you know what his first writing credit is, Tim?
What would that be?
Do you know what? Because something else Tim said to me after he sent this image was that because of this, because that's you said Buffy's that show you like, so you have to praise him now. That's how this works, or you're a hack, or something to that effect. So I want you to keep that sentence in mind as I tell you what his first writing credit is. I want you to brace yourself. His first writing credit is Leprechaun 2.
This man's a genius. All right, I gotta rethink some things. Maybe there's something to this movie that we might have missed.
One day when we get to the Wrong Turn franchise, he wrote Wrong Turn 2, so we'll see how that shapes out when we get there. But
well, I mean, I don't know. Is anyone gonna be able to trust us on this review? Then I feel like we're both compromised. Like, if we both give it 10 out of 10s, like, are people gonna know that if we genuinely liked it, or if we just are standing by our boy Turi?
Tim, the key word there was if, and I've got a good feeling that neither of us are going to be giving this a 10. Just a sneaking suspicion.
All right, well, at least now I can lord over you the fact that someone worked on Buffy that worked on Leprechaun 2.
Okay, sure. He directed one season 6 episode of Buffy.
Your favorite season?
Did not write the episode, though. It's worth mentioning.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that perhaps his writing is worse than his directing. Although his directing in this particular movie is not that great, but he did also write this. He co-wrote this movie, so all the ideas are his fault too.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
So I felt that was worth pointing out. So who are characters and actors then? Let's get into some of that stuff. Our lead.
Let me ask you something first, real quick.
Oh, go on.
If, let's say you're watching this, and I know you don't really drink, but let's say if people that do drink were watching this and they were doing a drinking game where they had to take a shot every time there was a dream sequence.
Yes.
How drunk do you think they would be by the end of the movie?
I think that, you know how when you're doing like weightlifting and stuff, you have like a spotter for to do the bench pressing and various things for safety reasons. I think if you're going to play that drinking game, you have to have a sober person with a phone who can call an ambulance sitting by your side because things might go horribly wrong. That's definitely my answer to that. So our leading lady is Donna D'Errico, who I'd never heard of. She has been in like a couple of random TV episodes that I have seen like years ago, but so I was like, oh, who is this? I was like, she seems like she's less of an actor and more of a model who's used in movies because she's attractive. That's the impression I got from her. Her acting's not that good. There's a couple of laughable scenes that I will like to bring up later, but
yeah,
I did a quick Google, and it turns out that she was on Baywatch, right? And it's okay. That makes sense. I could just have her running next to Pamela Anderson in the red swimsuit. Seems like the idea. But what was more interesting is that it turned out that she was a later addition to Baywatch. She came originally. She was actually introduced in the spin-off Baywatch Nights. Now Baywatch Nights, I've never seen it, but I have heard it only lasted 2 seasons. Now Baywatch Nights, David Hasselhoff was in it. He was the main character, and it was about becoming a sort of more of like a detective-y PI show. But the really fascinating thing about it is that because it wasn't doing so well, in its second and final season, it switched to being a sci-fi paranormal investigation show.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. I've never actually seen it, but I've heard about it, and it does kind of sound amazing.
Do you know what I love about it? I love that Baywatch, which as far as, I mean, I'm sure it's got silly plots and over-the-top action and drama, but as far as I know, never delved into real science fiction or supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
So what's funny to me is that there was a spin-off that still had a main character from the main show on it that turned supernatural / paranormal, but not only that when it ended, they said, you know what, we're going to take one of the characters from that and put them into the main show. I kind of love that. It's just such a wacky timeline of events. So that's our leading lady.
Great.
And that's the most interesting thing about her. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want to be like too mean, but yeah, the acting in this just. I mean, I haven't seen her on Baywatch. Maybe she's great on that. Maybe it was the direction. She didn't have a lot to go with, but it's rough. It's rough in this one.
There's a lot of sitting looking shell shocked after horrible things have happened. That doesn't really go very well. Obviously, Tony Todd's fine, but obviously his material in this is not as good.
He's great, yeah.
As normal. The only actor I recognized is the racist cop character.
Yeah,
he's been on a few things. He was on Prison Break.
Yeah.
But that was the only person I recognized, and other than Tony Todd, obviously. But everyone else was an unknown. I mean, sure. I'm sure if you go research them, I'm sure one or two of them might have had a small guest role in an episode of Friends or something in the 90s. But
sure.
Other than that, like no one was sticking out to me. So. So she's a descendant of Candyman. She owns all of the paintings because remember the character was an artist before he died, and
oh sorry, I think I might have missed something there, but so those were all the paintings that the Candyman actually did.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do it. I think I know what you're going to ask. Is there's one of him, so I guess he did a really good self-portrait at some point.
And then I wasn't sure if any of them were hers exactly, because there's like the scene where she like wakes up from her dream and she instantly starts drawing, and of course she's like a great artist.
I didn't remember that at all, to be honest, Tim. But yeah, good point.
So I was like, I just wasn't sure. I was like, okay, are those her paintings or his? And then I guess it would make more sense if they're his, given what happens in the end, probably. But
yeah, they're his. It's
be a little mum about that.
Yeah, and obviously that's the other thing with casting someone like hers. She never actually goes topless herself, but there is a lot of scenes of her walking around in her underwear. There's a scene where after some traumatic stuff has happened, we have like a sort of top-down shot of her just crying in the shower, sitting there naked, which felt a little bit just like, okay, any excuse.
Yeah, I don't want to... I don't want to be mean, but the whole movie kind of just had like a porny feel to it.
Oh yeah, it does.
You know what I mean? And then there's nothing wrong with porn. Obviously, I don't want to. If you like to watch it, that's totally fine. And then nothing wrong with people that are in porn. So I don't want to be mean about it, but I'm just saying it's not the kind of feel you want for your like horror movie. Yeah,
unless if the subject is sexual in nature.
Sure. Yeah.
Like that can work, if the whole because Hellraiser is a little bit sexual, but that's meant to feel sexual because it's about searching for that ultimate pleasure. It's in the themes, but here it just feels kind of tacked on.
Like Leprechaun 2, where he's trying to find a wife.
We did Leprechaun last time, Tim. We don't need to talk about Leprechaun, right?
You brought it up.
Only because it was a smoking gun, okay? It was a smoking gun to make you look a fool. So...
No gun can make me look like a fool.
But yeah, there's a couple of we actually get a flashback again to like him as a painter with the daughter of the guy who hired him, and she's topless in that scene just because this scene needed boobs apparently. Yeah, so I mean, there's some other boobs later in the movie, but they're more typical horror movie, just as a sex scene with characters who are about to get killed kind of thing, which is whatever. But it felt weird to me. Oh, we're going to do the flashback to the incident that led to him being lynched. Oh, let's make sure we have nudity in that scene. This is the time for some gratuitous boobs. And then there's a flashback because we find out the character from the previous film. I guess this is spoilers kind of for the well, it's not spoilers for this movie, but I guess it's like if you don't want to know the outcome of a character who's in the last movie, we find out she did die between movies, and it looked like a suicide. But obviously, the suspicion that Candyman was the culprit, which kind of paints, like, if you cared about her in the last movie, it's like, oh, she was killed up between movies by Candyman anyway, so she accomplished nothing in surviving. But there's a couple of moments where, like, our main character sees her as like a ghost, like Candyman makes her appear, and in one of them she's just naked and like topless and like but all bloody, and it's like, what is this rule with horror movies where it's like any excuse for nudity is good? Like that's the attitude they have.
Well, I think the well, what's kind of interesting, I feel like I was hearing some people talk about it on podcasts like recently, but like back in the day, like with these movies, like I think it was a little more important to put nudity in there because the internet wasn't, people weren't on the internet as much and didn't have as much access to just look up naked ladies whenever they want. So part of the appeal sometimes were, with watching these horror movies were,
I guess,
like horny, kids renting it or whatever.
Having,
because you don't really see nudity that much anymore, I feel like.
No, it tends to be more justified now, I would say. It tends to be, important to the themes or important to, like, the character feeling vulnerable or something. There tends to be, like, some sort of creative reason you can see why they've made that choice. And I guess it's somewhat true. It's still weird to me, though, that a lot of the examples of nudity in horror movies is in a situation which is in no way desirable. Like, a lot of rape revenge movies would be really gratuitous with the...
Sure.
And it's like... well, maybe some weirdos are enjoying it, but for the most part, this is not a desirable thing for the audience who's maybe up for some, gratuitous boobage in a scene just for boob's sake.
I feel like a lot of times it'll be like, someone will be doing something and then the act will get interrupted by like, them getting like a knife through the chest or something. So it's like all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, you're seeing the nudity, but it's just also like all this blood and gore mixed in with it.
Yeah. I mean, I can sort of forgive that a little bit because that's kind of like, okay, you get a bit of nudity first where it is just a sex scene, but then fun kill scene, it's like, yeah, okay.
The thing about all the damage it's doing to, all these young kids that are watching and then, they grow up and come of age and then, they're unable to, reach their climax unless like a giant sword, goes through their lover's chest or something.
I mean, if an individual has that problem, they should seek therapy and solve the problems, because it's not the horror movie's fault in this case, I don't think.
Okay.
That's my stance on that, I think. So yes. Yeah, it's a dull movie. It's not even funny bad. Like we've found enough stuff to talk about to have an entertaining conversation, but it's not it's not a funny bad movie for the most part. There's like one or two moments that made me laugh, which we'll talk about in a minute, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think like I don't know, the kills weren't super interesting, but like I wouldn't say that the gore was like horrible. Like, it's like practical effects. Sometimes like it looked, decent enough. That I guess I'll give it a little bit of credit for that. And I watched this by myself. But I don't know, I could probably have a little more fun if I was watching it with someone, but I'm also not like, I don't have like a lot of desire to test that out and try to watch it with someone, at least not for a while.
If you enjoy being married, I wouldn't subject your wife to it.
Oh, of course not. No.
How to get a divorce in one simple step. So yes, I will give the spoiler warning at this point on. It's not good. I do not recommend watching it. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So into spoilers though. The movie starts with one of those titular flashbacks. Titular? That's not titular. It doesn't say.
Was it a dream sequence?
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's what I meant. I didn't mean flashback. I meant dream sequence. One of those numerous dream sequences you mentioned, which I actually didn't even get it was a dream sequence, because it does this dream sequence where she dies at the end of the dream sequence. I thought that it cuts to the credits. When it came back after the credits, I was surprised to see the same character. I thought you were just a pre-credits kill.
I thought they were doing like a Scream thing, and then like I was confused because I was like, I have no idea who this character is. Like, what are we seeing? And then even once you realize it's the main character, I was still kind of confused because I was like, what?
Yeah, I thought it was just like a generic kill scene that was a bit artsy before we get to the main plot. But it turns out that's our main character. There's an art show going on with all of the paintings of Candyman that Candyman did with her friend who runs this gallery, who wants to exploit the fact that it's Candyman, that's her great-great-grandfather, and tries to, like, hires an actor to jump out with a hook, and she's not happy about this because she wants to tell the true story about who the real man was. Candyman's not real, but this is the real man. This is my real ancestor. But we're introduced to racist-ass cop, who is racist to everyone he meets in this film. Pretty much, but is also attracted to the main character, so he's also a sleazeball. So you know he's a bit of a stereotype, but
Yeah.
And we get introduced to her roommate character, who ultimately isn't that important. I mean, no one's that important in this, really, to be honest. And
It's like one of like the cheapest things that or cheapest scenes in the movie is like she hears her roommate screaming, like she rushes in to see what's wrong, and she's like, and her roommate's just like, "What? You know, I got that part for that horror movie."
I'm rehearsed. Well, see, this one came out obviously after the first two or three. Yeah, first two Scream. Scream 3 was 2000. So this came out after the first two Scream movies. This was their meta moment. This was their, we can do this because Scream has set the table for us. So, but her roommate doesn't get killed, but she doesn't get killed first. The first people to get killed is the art gallery dude and his model girlfriend, who. Yep.
Oh, and sorry. One thing actually I do want to mention real quick. So this takes place in Los Angeles. So the first movie took place in Chicago, and then the second one was that New Orleans.
I think it was New Orleans. That sounds right.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just weird that these movies are like all over the place. Like, I don't know, Candyman travels. He's not like, I guess he's not like other franchise killers. It's kind of usually sticks around one area.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I guess he's stuck to his descendants in this case, but I mean, you still have to say his name in the mirror, so it's not like, and it still worked with other people in the movie. It's not like it was just because it was her. Like there was other people who said it.
Every town has a mirror.
Just the one.
Yeah.
The town mirror. You have to go and use it. You have to like put in like an appointment, so you get a little bit of time with the town mirror. So, and this kills whatever. There's a bit of, I mean, I guess it's justified because they were talking about Candyman and how he died earlier, which makes it a bit poor taste in the character's part. But it did feel a little bit over the top that the sexy model who's topless starts like rubbing honey over her tits and then starts like sort of eating it off the wafer or whatever she's using to like move it around. And I think he says something like, "Oh, sweet honey," or "sweet bumblebee," or something. He says, he's got like a line. He gets really excited by the honey. So, but Candyman shows up. Tons of bees. He stabs with the hook the guy. What I thought was funny about this effect is obviously there's a lot of effects for the bees that are flying around, but I noticed that the actress also had a lot of static bees stuck to her that were a practical effect. But what really bothered me, because that's fine, I don't want to like make fun of that too much, but what bothered me is that it cut away from her and cut back to her multiple times, and I thought what they would do is that every time it cut back to her there'd be more, they stick more to her in between shots. But every time it cut back to her, it was the exact same patches that were covered in bees, and I'm like, well, what is that because that's where the honey was? So it's like sticking to the honey. Is that what you're getting at? I don't think bees are attracted to honey. That's not. I mean, they make honey. I could be wrong. I don't
Good
know.
question. I have no idea.
You
know who would be a good adversary for Candyman would be Nicolas Cage from The Wicker Man.
Wait, how's he an advert? If anything, he's the easiest target he has. He's so terrified of bees.
Yeah, but that's what makes him a good villain for him. So he has to overcome his fear.
His bees are his weakness. That's like that's like sending someone who's got a fear of water to like try and take on Aquaman. Like it doesn't work.
I don't know. I'd watch it.
Or sending Freddy Krueger after, like, I don't know, the Human Torch. because apparently Freddy's scared of fire.
Oh yeah.
Very confused. Jason told me that.
Freddy versus Jason logic, yeah.
Yes. So yeah. Anyway, so she's traumatized by this. Starts chain smoking at this point in the movie, and so the weird circle of events is the cops think it's the actor. So the actor that was hired, David, right? So he ends up being sort of the main love interest. He jumped out of the art gallery with a hook to scare people, but it turned out it was just an actor, and that's all it was. The art gallery guy paid him off, and they think they're convinced it's him, and the racist cop is convinced it's him just because well he's a minority, so it must be him. Like, I know these people, kind of attitude. Because
he seems very upset that like she's hanging around with. Yeah, as you said, like these people, he calls them.
He's jealous. He tries to give him or her his home phone number, and tries to cozy up to her. Right. So that's all whatever. And there's actually another like duo. There's another pair of cops. So there's a cop that's like a black woman, sorry, a black man, and was it a Hispanic woman, I think? But they come in and they are like sort of the normal cops who are asking questions calmly, and they're trying to be nice to her, and then in walks racist cop and his partner, and like, we have got priority here because we were investigating the robbery from the art gallery, so this is our case. And he says like 3 racist things to the black cop like immediately. So it's like, okay, right, fine. So we have this weird dual like pair of cops thing going on that becomes important by the end, which we'll get to.
Yeah, so, it's kind of like a weird like side plot because like, yeah, I feel like you forget about the cop a lot throughout the movie until like he kind of shows up and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot like he's a character here, and then it like becomes like really important in the end. But it's so like surface level. Like you could say something interesting about having like, a racist cop, and like how they would be going about like an investigation, and looking at like the suspects and how they treat them. Like there's definitely interesting stuff you could say there, but this movie's not doing anything interesting. It's all like very surface level, like very stereotype, like, oh, look at this bad cop, and like he's so mean and stuff. And I don't know, it just felt very like, I don't know, generic. Yeah,
it's not really saying it. It's just, look at how bad he is because he's racist, which is true. Yes, he's bad.
Yeah.
Being racist is bad. Yes, I agree with that movie, but it's never more than that. It never goes beyond that.
Yeah,
that's all it is. So, yes. So basically, eventually, David shows up and he's mad at our main character, Caroline, because he's like, "What did you say to the cops? They were interrogating me all day. They think I'm up to something." And he's convinced that if it was the same hook that he was using, if it was the same hook he was using as a prop when he jumped out of the art gallery, then his fingerprints will be on it. So he's worried, and I can't. This is one of these like dumb movie decisions that I don't fathom. But immediately she's like, "Hey, well, if we find out, or if we can prove who actually did the murder, then that'll get you off the hook." Why she cares about clearing this guy's name that she doesn't even know, and her only interaction before this point was him jumping out and scaring her, it baffles me. But it literally cuts to them, like her getting on the back of his motorbike and them riding off to go and solve crimes. Like, why are they investigating this? Like, there's a lot of horror movies where the main characters sort of start investigating things even though they're not police or investigators, and they're just doing it because they have to. But this just jumps to them investigating this, like, for no reason. They're just doing it.
Yeah, you can see it's like so different from the first movie where like you completely understand the main character's motivations in that movie, and like why she's doing what she's doing and how she's getting in over her head. It just feels like such like, all right, well, I'm doing this because the movie says I should, and we have to kind of keep going forward. Like, yeah, there isn't really any reason that she should be like doing any of this.
Yeah, it's just because it's that type of movie. That's the only reason. And basically, they want to try and find the gang who stole all of the paintings from the gallery, right. Which is very important because that ends up in such a pivotal detail later on, even though it's just something that's mentioned, a little bit here at the start of this stuff. They go and talk to.
I think. I forget if we actually mentioned it, but At the start of the movie, she does say Candyman in the mirror 5 times, like at the art
At the
gallery.
gallery, yeah, she does, yeah.
So like, kind of like the whole movie, it's kind of like, oh, like did I summon him by doing that?
Yeah, well, so actually, I have glossed over something important. I can't believe I went over this. So you said there's a lot of dream sequences in this movie.
Right,
I would
yeah.
argue that some of them aren't really dream sequences. She just wakes up from them. Like, it transitions to her waking up as if it was a dream, but it wasn't actually a dream. Like, it did happen. There's a few of those.
Oh, okay.
Because, Exhibit A, when she leaves the art gallery and she's going home, she ends up running into Candyman in the subway. And I present to you Exhibit A of Laughably Bad, which is Candyman floating down a subway tunnel surrounded by bees. Joey, it looks like when Magneto is floating and he has like some metal stuff like floating around him.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. He comes down floating surrounded by bees, and I'm like, okay, this is your first appearance of Candyman in this movie, not counting the dream sequence at the start.
Yeah.
You've lost points already, so good job.
Yeah, and I don't know, like I feel like it's like I could see that maybe being like a cool visual if you actually had someone like with a bit more like style or something directing it, but you kind of mentioned it before, like the whole movie just looks and feels like very generic. Like there's never anything interesting or that really like catches your eye about it. And then yeah, when you get stuff like this that the first time seeing Candyman, there should be this like big grand entrance and like I don't know, like I could see it being cool, like him floating and having a bunch of bees and stuff, but yeah, it just when they show it here, it just doesn't look cool. Like, yeah, there's really nothing that interesting about it.
Yeah, it doesn't look quite as full on direct-to-video Hellraiser sequel, but there's definitely a lot of similar DNA and kind of the cheap, like, thriller-looking direct-to-video movie quality that this has, as far as the visual look goes.
For sure, yeah.
So that's the thing. So that's the first time she sees Candyman. Candyman like comes to her like during some of the murders, or she's there to witness the murder, or he like sees her separately, and the murder happens like right after. So that's kind of. But anyway, so they go to speak to like this guy who knows people in the Hispanic community and will be able to like sort of track down the gangs, which she incidentally ran into earlier on in the movie, and he was nice to her. This dude.
Oh, wait, was this when like it's Day of the Dead and they explain to her what that means, or was that earlier?
I think I don't know what scene that was. It was either this scene or it was when she ran into him at the start, like, with the kid selling the little trinket. Yeah.
Because I don't know. You think the whole Day of the Dead thing would, I don't know, maybe play a bit of a bigger role, but it's kind of like just like one scene where someone's like, "It's the Day of the Dead," where we like respect our like dead ancestors.
Yeah, the celebration. It's basically just a reason for a crowd to be there at one point later on.
Yeah,
and that's kind of it. It's completely irrelevant to the movie, honestly. Which shit.
Don't really need. Yeah, you don't really need to call your movie that if it doesn't really impact it that much.
No. They just wanted a cool subtitle, and it does sound good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why George Romero used it.
Sure. Yeah.
But so she has another episode in the bathroom where she sees Candyman. She sees this is where she sees her dead mother.
It'd be funny if she was just like on the toilet, just having real bad dump.
Well, she's at the sink, Tim. Keep your head out of the gutter. Which does mean we've glossed over, because this is the thing, I have no idea when this little flashback took place, but there's a flashback at one point.
2019.
But there's a flashback earlier in the movie at some point where her mother's death comes up, and the scene that I also thought was laughably bad was her finding her mother's dead body in the bathtub and like bleeding from the neck, because the yell that she yells out as her mother's lying there dead made me laugh so much. She starts holding the body and going, no! Yeah. It really made me laugh.
It's really bad. You know what I just thought of? And I hate thinking about this, but like, if this was taking place in 2020, then like that means like Trump was still president, Like, I don't know, just like imagine like someone bringing up these Candyman murders to him and just having like Trump say Candyman in the mirror 5 times.
I mean, there's a positive end to that. He'd be gullible enough.
Yeah. A lot of people are saying it's Candyman's back. I can't do a Trump impression. I should even try.
I know I can't, so I'm not going to. So I knew that took place before this scene because we'd already seen that before this time the mother pops up, naked in the bathroom. So
there's so many like naked blonde women in this movie. I was like, I kept getting them confused. I was like, all right, which naked blonde woman is this now?
There's the mother, there's the main character, and there's the ancestor who is the one that Candyman had the affair with.
Yeah, and then the lover of the art gallery guy.
The model. Yes, quite right. So yes, a lot of blondes in this movie. So from here, like, there's just a sort of blur of boring shit. David takes her. David takes her to see his grandmother, who's got like, I don't know, powers or something. Like, it's one of those horror movie tropes.
Yeah.
It turns out David's got a little girl. His old either wife or just or girlfriend, whoever, is dead. So it's just him and the kid. And she's clearly growing attached to David. She is. And when they go back to her place later that night, she's like,
when you investigate murders with someone, you usually get pretty close.
Yes. When they go back to her place, she's like, I don't want to be alone. Can you stay around? And then they start drinking, and
it's like,
yes, Tim.
Oh no, never mind. I was gonna make a dumb joke, but it's okay.
I think that people want to hear the dumb joke. Please, by all means.
I don't know, just like well, like when you said, yeah, like they get to her place and he's like, yeah, I don't want to be alone, and then he's just like, well, I shouldn't be looking after my daughter, so I'll just hang out with you.
It's all right. She's with the crazy grandmother. It's fine.
That's true.
She's being looked after. And would you believe it? They get close. And although I did kind of laugh how it just fades to them on top of each other for a sex scene, because it didn't feel like it set it up. I mean, it was obvious it was going that way, don't get me wrong, but it just kind of fades suddenly to them on top of each other. And this is one of the ones I was talking about where it feels like she wakes up from a dream, but it did happen though. It seemed like this romantic night did happen. But she wakes up and her roommate's there and she's like, what's up? Who's this David? He's not here. And that's when the roommate gets killed. And the police show up. They arrest her because now at this point there's too many dead bodies connected to her. And not the main racist cop, but the racist cop's partner, he's got her in the police car. He's laughing about her saying that Candyman did everything. And then Candyman, would you believe it, shows up and kills him.
Oh boy, it's something else. Actually, I mean, I don't think this was like again, like terrible, like seeing like the claw go in and out of like through his like stomach and through the car scene stuff. Like, I don't know, like it's not like a super interesting kill, but like the effects weren't horrible, I guess.
I think the problem, and this goes for 2 as well, is that they're trying like desperately to turn Candyman into a slasher villain, and that's not really what he was in the first one. It's kind of, it is actually, the Hellraiser comparison is quite interesting because Pinhead's kind of the same thing, where Pinhead was very much just one thing in that first film, and then all of a sudden all these sequels try to keep changing what he is because they want him to be that iconic horror character.
Yeah, it's just like I get what the instinct is there because they are, very interesting parts of their respective movies. But I mean, part of what's interesting about them is that they aren't just a, slasher, villain. Like, there's something a little bit more to them. Something like it's kind of a, like an atmosphere about them. Like, it's very creepy and ominous. And then the more you kind of explain and fill out their backstory and just turn them into kind of a boring, typical generic slasher dude, it's just not that great.
Yeah, I think when you have someone who's just killing people, like, I prefer it to be simple. It's just, force of evil. It's why Michael Myers is my favorite, right? But when you have more complex characters, turning them into just killers is kind of dull. Like, I feel like the two different things, like, are separate, and when they try and mix them, it just kind of, I mean, basically just try to turn him into something he's not, and that's, I think, part of the issue.
It's like if you're eating like a fish and you dropped it in a big bowl of Skittles. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, fish is good and Skittles are good, but you don't want to, take the fish that has all the Skittles on it and eat it. It's like, sometimes those things don't go together.
Tim, I have never agreed with you more than I do right this minute. Skittles, good. Fish, good. Together,
no way.
May clash a bit. That's all I'm saying.
Is that a t-shirt? Is that a new shirt for the store?
What? Skittles good, fish good. Together. Yeah. I don't know. I think when we do our streams after midnight, there should be a goal for Tim to eat fish and Skittles in one mouthful. I'm not doing it.
I have to at least be like a baked fish or something. I can't just be like a raw.
Oh, sure. Yeah, like, yeah. You can cook it.
Fish I caught in the stream.
Oh dear. So Candyman.
Although, if it might be fun if we do like some type of eating contest on a stream one day.
Okay. Yeah.
We each buy a pie and just see who can down it first.
We'd have to really coordinate, given that we're in different countries with different pies on offer. We'd have to really coordinate the size and.
Yeah, it's gonna take a lot of math because someone likes the metric system. I don't need you telling me, all right, what pie are you getting? Like, oh, I'm getting like a 2-foot pie. You're like, oh, well, my pie is 5 meters. Like, I don't know what the hell that means.
First of all, 2-foot pie is freaking huge. Secondly, I'm fairly certain that on the boxes of the pies that you might buy, they don't measure it in feet. I've just got a sneaking suspicion here, Tim. I'm also fairly certain that pies in general don't have measurements on them because they don't feel the need to. Oh dear. It's not like a pizza where you have to specify a size because they're going to make it, and they have different sizes to pick from. Like, they tend to just sell each pie in one size. That tends to be their thing.
Yeah, because every time I order pizza, I say, how many feet is your pizza? They're like, 5 feet, 6 feet.
See, you say this, but pizza sizes here are in inches, which is not metric. So your entire argument is flawed.
Oh my god.
It's still 10, 12, 16-inch pizzas. It's not.
So you admit the metric system is bad?
I admit that for certain things, inches is a more convenient measurement.
Hell yeah. I think I know what things you're talking about.
Are you making a penis joke, Tim?
I would never.
Tim doesn't joke about dicks, but that's serious, very serious subject.
There's only one thing that I think is very serious in this world.
Yes. If there's one thing that's always straight when it comes to Tim.
What if like Candyman just has a hook for a penis too?
You know what's funny is earlier today, Tara was giving me shit for making too many dick jokes at a Screams After Midnight episode, and now we've just sat and had an extended, continuous dick joke for like 30 seconds. So that's just funny to me.
Was the episode the Greasy Strangler?
It was not, but I don't think you can blame us in that episode. That episode is just asking for dick jokes. Oh dear. So anyway, Candyman basically has kidnapped David. David's went missing, and he wants Caroline to like give in and like let him have sex with his great granddaughter. Like, it is sexual. Like, he does go to kiss her later on, so it's not just like killing her. He does want to like it's like he wants her as a a pittance or a make good for losing the woman he loved originally, which is just kind of weird and just like because that's the thing. Candyman as a character is supposed to be sympathetic, right? And then there's this curse that's born out of him because of what happened to him. That just makes it just murkies everything up and makes it feel really weird and like okay, whatever.
Yeah, and like if anything, like the one person that he should be like, I don't have fondness for, that maybe want to stay away from would be like his ancestors or relatives, like.
Yeah, because this is like a descendant of the woman he loved too. So it's like no, that's the one person he shouldn't want to kill. But whatever. So she has to like run away. So obviously Candyman kills the cop in the car. She gets away. She runs through a Day of the Dead celebration. She gets to David's grandmother's house. And then she gets a phone call from like the mustache man in the bar who's like, been looking out for this gang for her. And he's like, hey, there's a member here. And the gang member is like scared shitless. And he's like, yeah, you can come and take the paintings, lady. Like, we don't want them anymore. Like, weird stuff's been happening ever since we took them. So she goes on her own with a gang member to a unspecified location that is like not near anywhere else. It's it's this derelict building somewhere. And the guy who got her this information says, hey, like, be careful, like, you're going off with a gang member, maybe this is a dumb idea. And sure enough, when she gets there, it's a trap.
Oh my god, it's a trap.
It turns out this gang is actually a cult, and there's a couple of them in the scene at the gallery earlier on watching the speech about the paintings, but they're basically worshipping Candyman, and they've got his big self-portrait up on the wall, and they're saying that he's the new messiah or some shit.
This was a nice thing to add to the movie with about 5 minutes left to go.
I know, it's so near the end, and all of a sudden, and what's so weird about it is this is like an all-white gang, right? This was like, at least I think it was.
They're like all art weirdos. Like,
yeah, they were all like
they were like I don't know, like stereotypical 90s goths. Like,
yeah, they're not art
they all
school,
had like piercings and
yeah, not art school, but they're very like, yeah, we believe in extreme things. We listen to Marilyn Manson, worship serial killers kind of vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if it wasn't all white, there was definitely no black members to this gang, which was very strange to me that they were all worshipping Candyman. But which is one of the moments that made me kind of realize how far away the movie had sort of gotten from kind of the subject that it was supposed to kind of be talking about. It was just kind of okay, just random cult, fine. Sure enough, one of them says Candyman 5 times, and would you believe it, Candyman shows up and just kills them all.
Who could have foreseen it?
Yeah. And Candyman says,
I think this was like literally what happens in one of like the end of like one of the Hellraiser sequels we did.
Yeah, I think Deader, the cult one, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds right, yeah. That scene was actually better though, because there was more fun effects with the chains and all that. And that was
those CGI chains.
Yeah, but it was not a good movie. Don't get me wrong, but at least the concept of that scene was a bit more playful than this was.
Yeah.
So Candyman says, "Come find me," and I mean we didn't even mention this because it was such a non-point before this, but there's like a painting of him, like a mural of him with a door in a random street.
yeah.
For reasons, and she goes into there. She finds David on like chains, very Hellraiser actually. He's on hooks.
Yeah.
But I suppose hooks are also Candyman's thing. But Candyman has one hook, right? That's his thing. He has one hook.
Yeah.
But being on chains with hooks is a Hellraiser, maybe Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing, depending on the scenario. Okay, so
Ghost Rider if you're going comics, but yeah,
sure. But mixing your lines here a little bit, but regardless, he's all like, give in to me, give me what I lost, and he kisses her, and it's like, okay, and then she decides to slash the self-portrait, which, would you believe it, also cuts Candyman in the same place, and bees start flying out. So
my one weakness, my bee-filled paintings. Like, sure, okay.
So she just starts slashing.
I guess we all know that about your mythos.
Yeah, she just starts slashing the paintings, and eventually, like, sort of like, it looks like he's on fire and he disappears. Although this hasn't actually defeated him, because then it turns into a Freddy Krueger thing, because then her dead mother as a ghost says, "You must destroy the myth. You must destroy the story." So when the police and stuff like ask her things, she's like, "Candyman's not real. It doesn't exist." So that's all she has to do to stop Candyman from doing things, is just convince everyone he's not real.
Well, you're missing a big part of it because
the cop. The cop part. Yeah.
Yeah, the racist cop comes out and he has like a hook and he's like,
well, actually, before he's been fired because he get caught being racist, and the black cop comes and punches him, and he gets fired for attacking someone.
Which is honestly the most the least believable part of the movie, that they would fire a cop for being racist. Like, come on.
Yes, in 2020.
In 2020, come on.
It's kind of sad that we can make that joke, but yes.
It's sad, yeah.
But yes. So, yes, he shows up with a hook, mad that he got fired, and because he shows up with a hook yelling that he's the Candyman, when the other cop comes in and catches him doing this, he shoots him to stop him from attacking Caroline, and he takes the fall for all the murders. He is now seen as the Candyman in the context of the public eye. And that neatly wraps up all of that.
So the entire world is just like, well, I guess we'll never say Candyman in a mirror again, because it turns out it was just a guy. Yeah. Even though, there's been 3 other instances of Candyman murders within the last 20 odd something years in different cities.
At least it's specifically at least it's specifically well, I'm about to make a point about Bye-Bye. At least it's specifically Candyman, and it's specifically 5 times, and it's specifically in front of a mirror. If you remember, Bye-Bye Man, I think you just had to say it anywhere, anytime, 3 times. And that was it.
Yeah, it's very easy.
Very, very, at least this, you have to be standing in front of a specific object. And I presume that if you say it 3 times and then you go to sleep and wake up, it's not just saying it 2 more times. I think it has to be, in the one...
In a row.
Yeah, the one go round. Yeah, so... And how often do you repeat the same word 5 times? Especially in front of a mirror. Yeah. I mean, maybe in front of a mirror, you might say something like, "Oh, sexy, it was sexy, sexy." Maybe you'll do that, but
sure.
But Candyman?
Or I mean, maybe if you're a certain Scottish person, you may use it to travel in between other mirrors and commit crimes.
Wait, what? What movie are you talking about? That's a reference.
Talking about a little fella I like to call the Mirror Master. He's a villain for a character called the Flash.
I know who Mirror Master is. I was assuming it was a horror movie reference. I wasn't expecting the Flash. But yes. Sure. The first Mirror Master was indeed Scottish. Yes, that is correct. Yes.
Noted DC historian.
I'm on a DC Comics podcast. I never claimed historian, okay? I don't make bold, ridiculous claims like you do about having a doctorate in horror. Okay?
That's right. I was a professor. Now I am the daddy.
I mean, you can be both. Professors can be daddies.
Oh, Professor Daddy.
So there's a quick scare where she thinks she's been attacked again, but she wakes up. It was just a dream, apparently, this time. And she's in a cemetery with David, who is alive, with his daughter, and they're at the grave of her mother. And that is the movie. It's over, thankfully.
Yep.
That's it. I mean... the only thing I noted about this ending, other than it just being kind of, trite and whatever, is that the music at the end is like a sort of lullaby music that sounds like it's trying to kind of evoke the feeling of the main theme from the first movie. But it was at this moment I went, yeah, why aren't you using the main theme? The main theme from that first movie is so good. Why wouldn't you just be using that?
Great. Yeah. Is it Philip Glass that did the score? The first one?
First one, yeah. So
who did this one? Some guy named Cody.
But I mean, I suppose keep in mind that they almost made a movie without checking the fact that Sony had the rights to it. Maybe they don't have the rights to the music.
That's true.
That's true. That's a possibility. It's a possibility. yeah, it's boring and dull. I think we did our best to have an entertaining conversation, but the movie's just a slog to get through, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking about it before, and yeah, I think it's only about 90 minutes, and you were saying like, yeah, but it feels like 4 hours, which it really does feel, yeah, quite long. It's just, yeah, the characters aren't great. It's definitely not doing anything fun or interesting with the franchise and the character, and yeah, it just looks generic. The plot, the lines, the actors, everything is just very generic and bland about it. And like you were kind of saying earlier, it's not even like bad in that fun way. Like, cause I love these like franchises, and most of the time like I like them because they can get kind of dumb and goofy. Like, I like when they're good and stuff, like but with like Friday the 13th and stuff, I like when the later sequels can get kind of cheesy and stuff. There's stuff that's like fun in that. Like, this is nothing fun here. It's not dumb and cheesy, at least in a fun way that you can watch and laugh at. It's just not just kind of a chore to get through.
Yep, and then just insane character decisions like, oh, we're going to be detectives now. Oh, I'm going to go with this gang member to a secluded location. Like, just ridiculous character choices that are either dumb from like a real world perspective because of how dangerous it is, or just dumb from like no one would just make this leap and start doing this. So, yeah, it's pretty much shit. Is the thing. So, Tim, would you like to?
Just to add on to that too, like, even if you are gonna be like kind of have like maybe like a detective angle or something on it, like, I don't know, like, try to make it more of a mystery, like, show that the character is like resourceful and finding, like, everything that happens just kind of falls in her lap, like,
oh yeah. There's no actual good detective work as much as technically they're investigating things.
And like whenever like a big plot thing does happen, it's always like out of nowhere. It's like, okay, yeah, oh, there's just like a cult now. Oh, these paintings are his weakness. Oh, the racist cop is gonna get blamed for everything now. It's like nothing feels like it was like set up or carefully orchestrated. It's all just like, all right, it's happening now. It's happening now.
Yeah, that random mural on the street is also where the climax is going to happen, because that's his lair or something. Like, even though he's not a physical presence, so why does he need like an actual layer? It's so many lot of things to get into. Tim, what are you going to rate Candyman 3?
I mean, I guess it's kind of appropriate since it's the third one, but I think I'm going to give it a straight 3. It's pretty bad. I guess I give it a few points because like some of the kills, while maybe not very imaginative, they at least looked okay, and there's like some decent enough like blood and stuff in it that I at least didn't mind that. And also I guess we didn't really talk about it that much, but I mean, Candyman himself, like, Tony Todd is such a presence that even though they're not doing his character any favors in this movie, he was still, I still enjoyed seeing him. He was not in the movie that much, but I don't know, it was still nice to see him, and even though a lot of the lines and stuff were stupid, he still delivers them well. So yeah, I give him a few points for that. But I mean, other than that, though, there really isn't anything going with this movie. There isn't really, unless you're just a completionist for the series, which I do like to do. With franchise, I like to watch everything, the good and the bad. So, but I mean, unless you're like that, you want to see everything, then there really isn't much that you would need to do this. I have the first and second movie on Blu-ray, and I don't know if this one has a Blu-ray, but even though my collecting is, I usually like to be complete about a lot of stuff. Like, I don't know if I would buy this one.
I believe it does have a Blu-ray if you really want to track it down.
I don't know. I can't imagine. I mean, if it was like super cheap, maybe, but yeah, I feel like I don't need it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 3 as well. I think 3 is the right score. It's just a bad movie through and through, and little to redeem it. I think, yeah, Tony Todd obviously has got a great presence, but some of his lines they're just so much fluff because they don't really mean anything. You'll never experience like ecstasy until death or something. He says that at some point, and it's just like, this is just a random Freddy Krueger line delivered without Tony Todd gravitas. And then you have the fact that there's no like build up or like intrigue building up to his first appearance. He just kind of appears, and then he appears in like glorious, I'm floating through the sky with bees, and that looks really, goofy. So yeah, 3 out of 10 from me. And I think it's fair to say from this original trilogy, it's not a trilogy. This Candyman, watch Candyman, ignore the sequels, pretty much. But there you go.
I mean, I normally don't like when they do this, but this would be one case where if they were like, I'm still, since we haven't really watched the new one yet, I'm still not exactly sure what they do with that one, if it's a complete reboot or a sequel to the first movie or whatever, but this would be one instance where I was like, yeah, you can ignore the sequels, and if you want to make do a new movie that's a direct sequel just to the first movie, fine. Like, I normally don't like that, but in this instance, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, so we'll be getting to that soon, probably next in fact. We'll be looking at the new Candyman movie and finally getting a chance to see it, so that is exciting. Tim is going to pose for the thumbnail. So if you'd like to assume whatever position you would like, and I'll go cut down.
Think of a good one. Oh my god.
Don't stress out too much, it's not that high stakes. Alright, 3, 2, 1, pose. I got you for 3 minutes. Oh, this is good stuff. And just, I don't do this segment every time, but I think sometimes it's worth to just check if there's any 10-star reviews on IMDb of this.
Oh my.
There is 2.
Okay.
the titles, so the first one is just Candyman Excellent. All I can hear is the Wayne's World voice as I say that. And then the other one is titled, So Far, the Absolute Best Candyman Movie.
What?
Which is absurd. That review is from the 10th of December, 2001.
Oh, God.
The other one's from 1999, actually. So, I mean, these are both ancient.
Wow. Interesting. I mean, I guess everyone can have their own opinion, but I don't know, maybe an opinion can be wrong.
Yeah. This guy's got some really weird grammar as well. He capitalizes the first letter of every word.
Interesting. Okay.
Very, very, very odd. So yes, I'll leave it there.
Sounds like one of our patrons.
Yes. What? Well, it's all our dear patrons. Speaking of our patrons, let me thank our Patreon producers for the month. Excellent segue, Tim. Thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Bordnow, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. They are all our Patreon producers for the month. But you can support us, of course, for as little as $1 per month at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses for your trouble, bonuses for other shows. Obviously, once we're back at full schedule, whenever that may be, probably, I don't know, in the nearish future. Did you say tomorrow?
I don't know.
It's a bit bold. We suspect early 2022, just to put a vague time frame on it. There'll be bonuses again for streams, but
I should call them boners.
They're not boners. This is just streams after midnight boner episode.
Like horror skeletons, bones, bonus episodes. There are boners.
We'll put it to a vote. Okay, we'll put it to a vote. But check out Patreon if you want to support all the content and keep it all coming. Check out that. You can also support us on YouTube for free by simply hitting the like button, subscribing, commenting down below, ding the bell for notifications. All those things help out on YouTube. And then on the audio versions on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from, if there's an option to rate and review the podcast 5 stars with a nice little blurb, then please do that too. All those things do help us out a lot. And Tim's making a lot of weird faces. So, but that's it. That's the episode. So hopefully you enjoyed our our thoughts on Candyman 3, and we'll see you next time for Candyman 2021, which has got a good buzz, so here's home.
Because of the bees.
I mean, I didn't mean that, but I'll take it. I'll take the pun. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time. What?
That's your catchphrase?
No, it's not my catchphrase. I don't have one yet, Tim. The bees! It's the bees! The bees are... Do you know what? On the Ace, right? Tara, she stopped it now, but Tara used to do the final thing. I would say goodbye, and then she would have a something related to the movie to say. So maybe you could step up, Tim, and shout out a movie-related joke at the end of an episode. Yeah? Is that an option?
We'll discuss my rate. My rate's gonna go up if I do that.
Well, okay, I'll give you a 20% increase.
Okay.
And luckily for me, 20% of 0 is still 0. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you next time.